And joining me on today's episode, as you can see, we also have a brand new setup, a brand new style of presenting if you're watching on YouTube. But other than that, we have an absolute legend when it comes to the Pirates. We have former coach, former player, also former clan player, and a current coach with the Glasgow Clan. So, please help me welcome Adam Walker. Adam, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be on.
This has all just kind of happened by chance as well, just in a chance meeting. First time speaking last night as well. Just like you up for this? So, but no, this is great. So thank you so much for doing this again, as well as really short notice as well.
Yeah, no, it's good. It was nice to see you yesterday. Just obviously, sometimes checking in with the Pirates, see how the guys are getting on because they can't be there as much anymore. And it was nice to meet up and have a chat.
No, that's awesome. So you see, you still have that kind of good connection, that kind of good bond with the Pirates as a whole, don't you?
Yeah, Ian and myself still keep in touch pretty regularly, just how he's getting on and how the guys are getting on. And it was 6 years of 6 years I was at the Pirates in terms of a coach and filling in every now and again as a player. So it's I like to keep in touch and if Ian ever, it's not obviously it's a difficult job being a coach, but Rab's there to help him as well. But I often, if Ian ever needs to chat about something or ask a question, then I'm always there if he needs any help with anything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, before we get on to your time with the Pirates, let's kind of go right to the very beginning with how you kind of made your way into hockey. So, what kind of first drew you to the sport?
So pretty young, to be honest. I mean, coming from Kirkcaldy, it's a very ice hockey town. The people of Kirkcaldy are very supportive in general behind ice hockey. And I think even though we have Raith Rovers there as well, hockey definitely seems to be just as big as the football there. And the way I got into it when I was born, my dad used to play. He played kind of for what would be the Kirkcaldy Kestrels at the time. And then when I was born, he kind of gave that up and got into coaching and used to coach kids. And when I was really young, then he used to take me along and I used to watch practices and just fell in love with the sport from there. That was kind of from a very young age. That's all I remember wanting to do, was just to get on the ice and skate about. And I think I started skating at about 3 years old and then started playing ice hockey with the beginners in Fife at 5.
So, where did that journey then take you from starting with the juniors?
So it started with the juniors. So back then there wasn't an under 10s team, so it was under 12s was your youngest team. So I started with the beginners, and then I think I was about 6 years old when the under 12s coach, a guy named Jimmy Simpson, who actually also was involved with Glasgow and then back in the day as well. He had me up with the under 12s, but obviously I think from what my mum and dad said, I used to hate it to start with just because I was so small and there was all these 10, 11-year-old kids that were, far advanced in the skating side of things. But, stuck with it. And I remember, I think my earliest memory I have was we used to sometimes play in between the periods for the Flyers and whoever they were playing. And I remember going on for a scrimmage in between the period and scoring a goal and the crowd cheered, and then I think from then on in it was just like, this is where I need to be. I need to do this, and it really was. I didn't really need much encouragement from my parents. It was just something that was a number one goal for me pretty much from that day onwards.
Yeah. So, how did those early years shape your approach to the game?
Well, it was definitely different back then than it was now. I think, it's difficult to say because obviously you go through the junior systems and it wasn't so much a case of now the game is so advanced that coaches from under 10 level you're teaching about skills and you're skating and there's lots of individual stuff, and like the under 10s now play cross ice. Like we never had that, so under 12s would have been 2 20-minute periods in the full ice, and
Wow.
it probably felt like a mile to skate up and down that ice, because you're so small. And I think, but the coaches in Fife were really good. They were all, or most of them were all ex-players. Guys like like Alan Anderson, who now does the commentary of the Flyers. You've
Mhm.
got Kenny Horn, whose son Kyle played for the Flyers. Kenny was a Flyer. Chick Cottrell, those guys do. So a lot of the coaches at Fife were all ex-players
Mhm.
that were still back in the junior system and coaching, and I think that really helped. I think Fife has a reputation of being a junior setup, and I think that kind of has carried on throughout the years, and so that was really helpful for me. Lots of knowledge, lots of coaching. Although it's not as advanced as it is now, but it certainly was. I was under the guidance of the right people, which I think really helped.
Mhm. So across your playing career, you represented, what you say, like quite a number of clubs as well. How did your journey to Paisley come about?
Well, I think I mean in terms of coming to Paisley, so I moved when I signed with the Clan and for the first year of the franchise. It was 2010, so I played there for
Mhm.
3 years, and then after 3 years, I had a year in Telford and a year in Manchester. But I would still maybe not so much Telford, but Manchester. I'd still be based for at least half the week up in Glasgow, and I met my
Mhm.
wife I met my wife here when I played with the Clan, so she was going through medical school at the time. So I was still very in and out of Glasgow. So when I did retire and decided not to play anymore professionally, we were still living in Glasgow. We had a flat in Partick,
Mhm.
and I actually got asked first and foremost to coach what are the Dundee Comets, so they're now the Rockets. My brother was playing up in Dundee, and they were looking for a coach, and I decided to go and help out for the last half of the season. That led to doing another year up there,
Mhm.
and then I decided that probably with the travel and stuff, it was kind of 2 nights a week up in Dundee, the games and stuff. It was kind of too much of a commitment.
Yeah.
Um, and then that's when Ian got in contact and said, "Would you fancy coming a little closer to home and helping with the Pirates?" And I grew up playing against the Pirates every age level, and even when they were in the B&L at the time as well. In fact, my first ever game for the Flyers, I was 14, and I played against Paisley Pirates, which is kind of
Yeah.
an interesting thing. So. But yeah, so I decided to come and help out with the Pirates, and it was good. Yeah, I had I had a great time there. Ian was he's a good guy, and he always wants the best for the team, and
Mhm.
it was a good place to be. And the guys, they were going through a bit of a transition stage where a lot of the older guys were kind of moving out, and so we had to then recruit younger players and try and build a team and try and build like a winning team for a start, because
Yeah.
the Pirates have that reputation of always being competitive, always being up there, always been challenging for trophies. So that was a
Mhm.
challenge in itself, but an enjoyable one nonetheless.
So before we fully delve into your time with the Pirates, we may as well start with the Clan, obviously. So back in the 2009-2010 season, you had an amazing season. You had 51 goals and 102 points overall for that season. Do you remember much about that year? And for you, what do you feel clicked personally and with the team?
So that year was Manchester. That was my last year in Manchester.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we'd just moved, so I'd spent a few years in the Elite League with Manchester, and they decided to move down to the EPL, which is now the NIHL, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually, again, funny story. I had the chance to to perhaps go to Nottingham at the time. Corey Nielsen was coach there, who's now with the Clan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it didn't really transpire. I was contracted to Manchester, and decided to have a year in the EPL, and just kind of put myself back in the shop window, and playing with players like Tony Hand and Ed Courtney, who are ex Super League, Elite League players, and
Mm-hmm.
Tony, regarded as one of the greatest British players of all time. Playing with him and kind of learning under him, and yeah, I had a good season that year, and that's effectively what led me to coming up to Glasgow and playing with the Clan, and yeah, I enjoyed my time.
So once everything was done and dusted with the playing, you moved into coaching. So other than being brought in by Ian, what was that motivation to become a coach, and how different is the mindset required compared to being a player?
Yeah, I think it's I think playing definitely helps, but you obviously have different qualities in a coach,
Mm,
and different coaches go about things different ways. For me, I think as you get older, you kind of learn what was good, what was not so good, and I wish I'd knew this back when I was younger, and I wish I'd known that. And for me, that was the motivation behind coaching. Was, I was always able to read the game very well and kind of understand different parts and being able to break down different parts very well in terms of
mm,
for my own learning. And I just felt at the time that for UK hockey that it would be a shame if I wasn't able to use that. So coming back into coaching and being able to tell younger players or players in the SNL level things that they might not have heard before, things that they might not have realised, and being able to give them pieces of advice that I wish I had when I was younger,
yeah.
in order to help me develop. The game of hockey is developed. It develops so quickly that you need to move very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the main motivation behind the coaching. And I looked at the SNL and thought, if there was a team that was really well set up and the players understood a little bit of what I could, tell them and what I could teach them, then they would always have a chance to succeed. And then with Ian, it's always he works very hard. He's a very hard working person,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's happy to take on board things that I've learned, and he could then tell me things about the SNL because it'd been so long since I'd been involved in SNL hockey. I think I stopped playing SNL hockey when I was 17, and so it's been a while. So I think it was a good match. It was a good match in terms of what we could offer each other just to help with the Pirates.
So part of your time you were a player coach for the Pirates. How did balancing playing and coaching impact you, and what were your biggest challenges for that kind of dual role?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, it's very hard to be a player coach, because you're trying to focus on, you're trying to focus on yourself and making sure that you're giving enough to the team and not
Yeah.
and not hampering the team in that way. But then also you're trying to analyze the game and understand what the team needs, not just from you personally, but also from a coaching point of view. And to be honest, with the Pirates, the intention was never to play. I was never intending on playing
Mm-hmm.
and coaching at the same time. However, the first year I was in there, I think the first 2 years, um, we went through some injuries and we were short, and key players were injured, and I think at the time of the first year we were close to in terms of the running for the league. And with all the injuries, we kind of just needed a push. And Ian and I talked about it, and it was Ian that suggested, should you play? And I was like, well, I don't know, it's been a while. And but no, we decided to play, and I think we were very close the first year. I think we ended up losing to Dundee on goal difference for the league the first year, and then with the injuries and stuff, we kind of ran out of steam a little bit, and then that kind of carried into next year, and same thing again. We'd gone through some injuries, and then I'd stepped in to play a bit, and then when everyone came back, we were still playing good. So I think I just continued to play for the rest of that season and see how it
Mm-hmm.
goes. And I think that was the year we ended up winning the playoffs, which was a fantastic achievement because the team was still very young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was Murrayfield Racers at the time who they had a lot of good players, and they kind of run away with everything that year.
Yeah.
But no, it was good fun. It's nice to play. I'd still like to play if I could, but unfortunately my body's a bit too broken. So I'm more than happy to to do other things behind the
Mm.
scenes.
So how would you describe your coaching philosophy now?
Um, it's a good question, really. It's a good question. I'd say I'm quite progressive in terms of willing to learn and keep up with the times.
Mm.
Um, I do still have if I was coaching a team, I would still have expectations. I like to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone's accountable. So accountability is a big thing for me. Having people responsible for themselves and being able to and being able to take on board different things. But I also think your coaching philosophy that has to change depending on the team that you have.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of get a feel for the room and how the players react to different things. And I think coaching now in today's game is more. It's a lot more about individual players too. So
Mhm.
every individual is different. Some people's um, to get the best out of somebody, you kind of have to put an arm around them, or you might have to give them a kick up the backside. So, but you have to learn very quickly. I think to be successful in this day and age, you have to learn your players very quickly and have to learn understand how to get the best out of them and what they need in order to succeed.
So, what do you like to emphasize most when you're working with players?
I think commitment. I mean, yeah, commitment and accountability is two big things.
Okay.
I'm I think as long as you can be given your best, then
Mhm.
that's all you can ask for as a player. Ice hockey is a game where you can make mistakes. It's a game where no one's perfect. It's a game where on a Saturday you could feel great, and on a Sunday you could feel like you've got lead in your boots, and
Mhm.
that can go. But it's about managing yourself and being able to manage yourself as a player. And then my job is really just to guide that thought process and to make sure that as a team you play in a certain way, you play in a certain style that you want to play that game. But also as players, kind of just feeling as good as you can in order to try and perform on that day.
So let's move on to the kind of the club and community development with the Pirates. So the partnership between the Pirates and the Clan is, it's been quite significant for Scottish hockey as a whole. Now, obviously, like Dundee have got their links, Kirkcaldy and Fife have their links, for example. What are your thoughts on the importance of such a pathway for young players in the west of Scotland like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think things like that are really important. I mean, it was one of the first things that when I joined Paisley, I wanted to try and emphasize to both sides, Pirates and Clan, about the relationship, because at that point, there wasn't really a relationship there, and I felt
Mm.
that why wouldn't there be a relationship there? I mean, obviously there's certain things that you can go down the road of saying why what was there and why it wasn't there, but it didn't make any sense for me why the Clan wouldn't have a relationship with a team that's playing at the lower level in the same building,
Mhm.
and vice versa for the Pirates. Why we couldn't then put a program in place um, to try and first of all entice players to come to Paisley, because Paisley don't have a junior setup, so they need to kind of take from elsewhere. And at that
Yeah.
point, we were looking at all the good players in certain teams want to stay at their teams, which is absolutely understandable. So to try and entice players to come to Paisley and have that relationship and say, well, if you come here and we develop you and you do great, then you can have a chance at skating with the Clan and seeing how that
Mhm.
goes, and they can then take it on board and see, yeah, this guy's got some talent. Yeah, we can develop him and try and turn him into elite league player. I think it was very important and I still do think it's important that there should be a Glasgow born player playing for his home side. I mean,
Mhm.
when I was younger, there was being a hometown player playing for your hometown side, there was no better feeling than that. And it's
Yeah.
a shame that the Clan don't have anybody like that at the moment. But I still feel that in terms of a connection between fans and the city and players, then hopefully sometime in the future they can get a few more homegrown players playing for them.
So, how can, in your opinion, clubs like the Pirates best support and develop the talent so that players that are ready for the higher levels? What would what can the clubs do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to have a pathway in place. I mean, you look at I've kind of studied loads of different clubs and how they look at things and how they develop players, and it's not even just in ice hockey, but in football. Like if you take
Mm.
Man City for an example, they have a philosophy that goes all the way through from their under 10s all the way through to the senior team.
Mhm.
And the coaches that run these teams, they're all on the same page. They all have communication between each other, and they try and teach the way that the club wants to have that philosophy. And I think to get a successful club and successful links, then you have to kind of probably go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult for the Pirates, for example, because they don't have a junior system, but they also don't have a professional team that's a direct link. So you have the clan there, and then that's why we got the kind of Lanarkshire Lightning guys on board as well, because Ian and I felt that to have that successful link, you need to have something that goes all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that to try and not necessarily play the same way, because obviously men would play different from say under 12s, for example, but
Yeah.
have a philosophy in what you're trying to teach and what you're trying to introduce, so that the transition between for example, the under 19s, the Lightning Pirates 19s, if they have a couple of guys who need to play up with the Pirates because they're learning the same things or similar things, then the transition shouldn't be as complex.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the same for Corey up in the clan. Like the philosophy there, in an ideal world, it could be implemented down to the Pirates. So, for example, um, if Chris Wilson, for example, was needing to play for the Pirates, then it should be relatively a simpler transition, because the stuff we do there is the stuff they do. So you're not teaching one thing for one club and one thing for another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes a long way in terms of transitioning players between different levels.
So, what role do you see the coaches and clubs playing in that pipeline?
Well, I think they would all have to get together and have it and talk about it. So I know that at clubs, obviously the senior team. So I'm again just using Man City for example. So Pep Guardiola will have a philosophy, and his philosophy will be put in place, and he would expect coaches to adhere to that philosophy, but then also coach around it. And if that philosophy wasn't being implemented, then there's a discussion as to why it would be implemented. But I think you have to have, I think different. You have to be on the same page. It's very difficult. I understand that with ice hockey, and especially in Paisley's and the Clans and Lanarkshire situation, because you've got three different clubs there.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that there is room for that type of situation to be put in place.
Okay.
But it starts with the clubs and the coaches getting together and having and speaking about it. That's to me that's the most important thing.
So, from your perspective, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges facing Scottish hockey today? Particularly in terms of growth and visibility and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of ice hockey, the level between the SNL and the Elite League is quite large. There's no secret behind that. The Elite League is a good league to play in. There's a lot of good players in that league, and the jump between SNL and the Elite League is pretty large.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really many players that will go from SNL and then head straight into the Elite League and become a regular. So there has to be, I think, for Scottish ice hockey, there has to be a level equivalent to like the National League. Now, whether that's getting a couple of teams in Scotland in the National League, which again is very difficult because you have the budgets are a lot smaller than the Elite League. You also have travel. You have different factors that would require a bit of complexity. And whether that's trying to have a couple of teams in there and you make a north and a south and
Mm-hmm.
and go that way. Do you know what, it's way above my pay grade, so I don't know the logistics behind all that. But I think in order for there to be a success, um, you really need teams at that National League level to be up in Scotland in order for players to get a better level and try and close that gap between the SNL and the Elite League.
So, moving on to kind of your kind of stance with like leadership and culture within a team. So you've led teams both on and off the ice. How do you cultivate that positivity within the team and creating a strong team identity?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, I think there's many factors in it. I've always been of the opinion that you need good people in order to be successful.
Hmm.
And I think looking back I think Ian was the same, and I know that Corey at the Clan, he's because I've known him for years. He's also the same. That he likes good people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you can have good people first, and the people that are willing to listen, and people that are willing to put themselves out there and make themselves uncomfortable, then that can breed success in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think as a group, and it doesn't even, not even talking about sports, but even as a business, as a anything, you really want good people in the building. And I think if you can have the right people in the building, then it breeds positivity, it breeds confidence, and it becomes. And then if you're going through bits of adversity, then the guys are close enough where they can pull together and pull through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always adversity doesn't always disappear within 1 days or 2 days.
Yeah.
You can go through spells like every team does. But I think if you've got good people in there and people who are willing to do what it takes to get out of those slumps and to chase success, then I think that's for me, that's the number one thing that I would do if I was in charge.
Have you got any stories from when you've had to manage adversity, or there's been a turning point for a team that you were with?
Yeah, I think there's always. I mean, there's always things that you can talk about. I think every team I've played for has had to go through adversity at some point. I
Mm-hmm.
think ice hockey is just a sport that's like that, where you'll have moments where you can't lose because you're riding high in confidence and the team's playing
Yeah.
well and individuals are playing well and the coaches are making the right decisions, and
Mm-hmm.
but you're also having times where things aren't going so good, and there's not really an answer behind it, and you can't buy a goal, and individually and team wise, there's lots of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly you know with um with the clan, we had a spell in the third year that I was there, so it was 2012-13, I think it was the season, where we'd had a couple of injuries, we'd lost a couple of games, and then we went on this run where we couldn't win. And it didn't matter whether we were playing at home, whether we were playing away. We couldn't string a result together. But you kind of just have to battle through it, and you have to, it's your experienced players would help in that regard. And it's not all about just working harder and grinding away. You have to focus on what's going wrong, why it's going wrong, and just little bits at a time. You're not going to change the world overnight, but you have to make little adjustments here and there. But that third year there, we actually ended up winning our conference, which was, I think at the end of when you look back in the season, it was a really good achievement because there was lots of adversity, lots of changes happening, players
Mm-hmm.
in and out. Um, but we kind of stuck together and ended up winning the conference, which was a good achievement in the end, I think.
So just what you were saying there about talking to the guys what's going wrong and where it's going right, sort of thing. How do you tailor that communication and coaching style when working with more experienced players compared to younger and developing teams?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's how you gauge the person as well. So
Right.
it's how if everyone's different. If somebody needs a black and white explanation as to why they're not doing as good as they are, then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's the case, and other times you can kind of put it in a way that's not going to offend them too much, but they'll still get the message. And I think that's a challenge in coaching as well, is sometimes having to tell them the same thing, but finding a different way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I say, everyone's different, but it's all small steps as well. If there's a player who's not played great, and he's done 3 or 4 or 5 things that are below the level that we would expect, then sometimes it's not about telling him the 4 or 5 things. We'll start with one, start with two,
Mm-hmm.
let him build that bit up, then look at other things, and then just kind of gradually build them up, because it can get quite confusing for players too. I mean, if I'm telling you 4 or 5 different things or 6 different things we need to change, even as a team within the period, before you know it, you're probably not going to remember any of them. But if you can focus
Yeah.
on maybe 1 or 2 things and go from there, then sometimes that can make a bigger difference.
So, what personal traits do you believe make the difference between a good player and a great player, and how would you encourage those traits in others?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've obviously got talent that needs, your talent levels have to be, a difference between a good and a great player. You've got that side of it. But I also just think like a willingness to learn, a willingness to an understanding of what it takes to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
For also a relentless kind of work ethic. For me growing up, like I said before, my parents never had to push me to do anything. For me, it was about wanting it,
Mm-hmm.
and I would do whatever it would take to get to that level. And it was a love for the game, but also just a love of learning as well. And whether that
Mm-hmm.
was shooting pucks in my back garden for a little bit, or if it was going around the school playing roller hockey with my friends, or if it was watching. I mean, I remember we used to train. So our SNL team used to train on a Wednesday night at 10:30 at night, and I would
Mm-hmm.
be 15 or 16. Um, we would train, and I would get home at midnight, and I'd have school the next day. But on Channel 5 at midnight, you would have an NHL game, and I used to watch the NHL game, and I used to watch players and think,
Yeah.
what is he doing? And how does he go about different parts of the ice and things like that? And I understand that not everyone's like that, and I understand that not everyone has that drive. Um, but in order to be successful, I think you have to have that. You have to be a little bit addicted to what you're doing, and you have to be a little bit ruthless and
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice different things. And it's not easy. Like, to be a professional athlete is not an easy job, because there's so few places for so many people.
Yeah.
You look at the Clan at the moment. I think they have something like 6 British players in their team. And then if there's 10 teams in the elite league, that means you've got 60 players in the whole of British ice hockey for British
Mm-hmm.
players that are going to be playing at that level, which is, in a percentage, is very, very small. So you have to be ruthless. You have to be passionate about what you're doing, and then you have to be relentless in what you're trying to achieve. And I think the difference between playing SNL and playing in the elite league can sometimes just be that.
Mm-hmm. So, looking ahead now, with yourself, your own career, what goals have you got for yourself for the next few years, whether it's in coaching, development, or even further progression?
Yeah, I mean, my job at the moment's taking up a lot of my time, so I don't. And it's one of it's probably the reason I'm not really with the Pirates anymore, is because I don't have the time to commit. And the Pirates are a big commitment, so it's not that I wouldn't have wanted to be there. It's just really just the time commitment between things like
Mm.
that. I'm trying to stay in the game as much as I can. Corey's been really kind enough to help me do a couple of things with the Clan, just as a when I can, and I'm incredibly grateful for him to allow me to do that, because it allows me to kind of stay in the game, and just learn from him and Mike, the assistant coach there. Just learn from them as to how the game is, how they operate, and how the game is developed into what it is now. So I'm very grateful for them to give me that opportunity, and it means that I don't. It's not a commitment where I have to be there every day, as
Mhm.
much as I'd like to be. But it's a case of, when I'm available, I can come in and I can ask questions, and they'll give me some small tasks to do, and it just keeps me involved.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, in the future, you never know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
But I'm enjoying just kind of still being involved and checking back in on the Pirates every once in a while, and seeing the guys again. Last night it was good to see a lot of the guys that are still there from when I was there. But yeah, it's at the moment for me, it's trying to keep my eye in, trying to make sure that if I was to do more of a heavier role, then I've not fallen behind. I've not missed a trick with anything. So
Mhm.
that if that opportunity comes, then I'm ready to just kind of seamlessly move in.
So, where do you see the Pirates and more broadly Scottish hockey as a whole in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's a good question, really, isn't it? I think I would definitely say the level of the SNL has improved in the last 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
But I think in terms of sport, people are taking a bit more care of themselves now. I think there's a lot more information out there than there used to be. Um, so the sport's definitely improved. I think in order for the SNL to succeed now, you need more teams that are going to be challenging for trophies. You need more teams that are going to be competitive,
Mm-hmm.
basically on a weekly basis. I think it's tough with the SNL because it's a volunteer-run league.
Yeah.
It is amateur, so it's not a case of there's most of the teams are not business ran.
Mm.
The Pirates are a charity. They try and they're providing a service to the community. They do a very good job in being community based, within Paisley and within Renfrew. And I think, as I'm sure if you asked Ian and Jackie, they would like more people through the door, but then there's
Mm.
limitations to how you can go about that. People have jobs, people have it's not a full-time job for them, so they need to try and find new ways, and keep it fresh within, to encourage people to come along. But it's I'm hoping that probably in the next 5 or 6 years you're going to see another jump again, where you're going to have bigger crowds, and you'll have, if there's more money coming into the sport, it means it can be spent more wisely in
Yeah.
developing players and trying to get higher end athletes.
So, last one just before we wrap up. What advice would you give to a young Scottish player whose their dream is reaching the elite league, or even higher in that regard? And what should they be focusing on beyond just skating and scoring?
So it depends how old they are. If it's a player who's, say, 9, 10, around about that age, then obviously fundamentals are definitely something that I would focus on. I
Mm.
think skating is a big thing now. I mean, I wasn't the greatest skater when I was younger, but or even even when I played, but I was okay. Like, I was okay. I could hold my own. But I think now, if you can become a really good skater, then it gives you a huge advantage when you're playing at higher levels, because
Mm.
everyone now is a good skater. There isn't really any weak skaters that play at a professional level of hockey anymore. So skating is, from a younger age, is definitely something I would recommend. If they were more closer to, say, 13 or 14, then it's all about mentality. It's all about how much do you want it, how much are you
Mm-hmm.
willing to sacrifice. I wouldn't have said that I was the most talented player. However, my mentality was that I wanted it, and then nothing was really going to stop me. And then that was even, there's some examples. I played my first game for the Flyers when I was 14, and at 16, 17 years old, we were playing Saturday night, and we'd go down to London or Cardiff on the Sunday, and I would get
Mm-hmm.
off the bus at 7:30 on the Monday morning and walk across the road and get on the bus and go to school. And that was me for two years, and it would mean, even times it would mean me, I'd play Saturday night, I'd get on the bus Sunday morning, I'd go down to wherever we were going.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wouldn't play. I would sit on the bench for the full game, and then I would get back on the bus up the road, um, take all the kit out, and then walk across the road and get to school the next morning. So that's just, I'm not saying everyone has to do that.
Yeah.
That's where I was at, and I was willing to do that probably for 2 years before I finished school, in order
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that when I left school I was ready to go.
Yeah.
So really it's about persistence, how much you want it. But then I think that applies to life in general. If you're wanting to move job, or you're wanting to do a promotion or whatever it is, then it becomes, how much do you want it? How
Yeah.
much do you how much are you willing to sacrifice? I never went out on a Friday night to the rugby club discos, because I trained on a Friday night, and
Yeah.
and I had a game the next day, and that was the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think if you speak to anyone who's successful, or who's been a world class athlete, they would probably tell you exactly the same thing.
Adam, this has been absolutely brilliant. It's just been so insightful just hearing you just brain dump everything. It's been really good. I did forget to ask the most important question as well, and I did this last week as well with Jay Heard. But what is your favourite biscuit?
Toffee pop,
I have not had a toffee pop in decades. Wow,
toffee pop
that
is
really
my
brings
absolute
back
favorite.
memories.
Yeah, or if you go to Aldi, they're toffee ooze, but same
Oh,
thing, exactly the
okay,
same thing. But if I had to have one biscuit for the rest of my life, that would be my biscuit of choice,
toffee
toffee
pop.
pop. Yeah.
Right. So if anyone's listening, that's a Christmas list sorted.
Yeah. I heard Marty Simpson talking about biscuits the other day, so if he wants to bring me some toffee pops, I'll take them as well.
I'm pretty sure Marty would oblige with that, let's be honest. So just before we finish up, Adam, was there anything you want to mention, say, promote? The stage is yours.
Nah, not really. Just obviously I know that Pirates fans listen to this, so just a thank you. Obviously it kind of ended abruptly two seasons ago, so just a thanks to everyone who was welcoming for me to be there. And if any Clan fans are listening, then I think that there's some real excitement behind the team this year, and I think that they can go far. But no, other than that, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, and hopefully our two teams will do good this year.
Absolutely. Adam, thank you so much for your time tonight. This has been great.
Thank you.
Cheers.
The Paisley Pirates are proud to be sponsored by Cold-Blooded Sports, Renfrewshire Council, cyclelane.co.uk, Custom Sports Stitch, Hillington Tyre Services, Al Gold Photo, Studio 13, Abbey Services, Crosscheck Clothing, Wild Haggis Protein, iLaws Scotland, and the Falk family.